Rolling, guys.
Like I
We're
got,
in the
yeah,
V.
let's go.
All right. So super excited for today. Tanya is a good friend of mine in the market. We've done some transactions over the years, and I love to bug her, and I've also nicknamed her T. I've coined that. She's probably one of the most respected agents in our market. I could put probably the top five agents on one hand, and she would certainly be on there. She got a really cool story. Started in 2000, pounding the pavement, doing cold calls, trying to make a big name for herself as a young entrepreneur. And she's built a pretty beautiful career in the last 25 years. She's into philanthropic work. She's married. She's got two beautiful daughters. She runs a super tight Navy SEAL real estate team, just a small group of badass women that just sell a ton of homes. So, yeah, super excited to have you on board. And yeah, welcome, Tanya.
I'm honored, right? I love the Navy SEAL. I love that.
Oh, yeah, the killers.
That's so great. Well, I'm honored to be here and honored that you had asked me. And I know that when we chatted, we talked about, well, what do I talk about? I mean, there's so much to unpack in 25 years, and so I'm going to speak about something that's really near and dear to my heart, and I think that everyone can apply to their business. It's something that if you are have a good heart and you're a beautiful human and you have the ability to be vulnerable, that I think you can really take your business to the next level. And so I'm honored to be here today. So thank you. And so Raquel, just a quick question. So the presentation that I gave you, what are people seeing right now?
They're seeing you, but I just sent it over to Riley.
Okay,
And Riley's
perfect.
really good at tech, way
Yeah, I
better
Okay,
than I
can.
could
awesome.
ever be.
Okay,
So he
I
can
can.
assist. Yeah, Riley?
Yeah, I can share for sure.
okay,
Awesome.
perfect.
He's our
That
tech
sounds
guy.
great. Okay, perfect. I am not that. So,
Me either.
um,
Can you guys all see this? Tanya, you good here?
yeah, that's great.
Okay, wicked. You just tell me
Okay.
next slide.
Okay, let's do next slide.
All right, wicked.
So yes, so thank you for having me. I'm Tanya Eklund. I'm with Remax First. I just switched over to Remax Brokerages. I was with the same Remax brokerage for 24 years and decided to make the shift to a different quadrant of the city because I specialize in the Southwest. And I started out my career at Remax. And at the time, I had dropped out of university, moved to Calgary, and I thought, okay, if I want to be the best, where do I go? And at the time, Remax Central was the number one Remax office in the world. I thought I'm going to go there. And I continued to stay there. It continued to be the number one Remax office in the world. And for 26 consecutive years based on closed transactions. And I got to be there for 24 years. So I was honored. We're going to talk about the art of connecting in real estate, connecting during open houses, building trust during listing presentations. I'm just going to turn my do not disturb on. Sorry about that. We're going to talk about asking for constructive feedback, and then we'll have any closing thoughts and questions. Next slide, please. So you know, we're always supposed to put like these accolades on here. So this is who I am. I am a very small boutique. I have no aspirations about growing my business like I'm sure many of you do. I've grown my business, but not from a number standpoint. I have so much respect for people who have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 agents. That is just not me. I am a small inner city boutique real estate firm. That is what I specialize in. I also specialize in luxury real estate. I do a lot of volume. This is my own volume. This is not my team's volume. And so I've averaged about 230 deals per year for the last 3 years. And I've been the top luxury selling agent in all of Calgary. So my team's deals are separate than that. And how I'm able to do that is I have 5 full-time support staff. And so they really allow me to focus on the communication, the negotiation, and the marketing with my clients. Next slide. This is just a little bit about my history. I had zero business background. If any of you have watched Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki, my father was not the rich father. I grew up in rural Alberta in a farming, ranching community. My parents were both in healthcare. My dad was a psychiatric nurse and a brain injury unit in Pinoka, and my mom was a pediatric nurse, and my grandparents were farmers and lived 100 feet to the south from us, and they were rural cattle and grain farmers. And so I did go to the University of Alberta, and I ended up dropping out. I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I watched lots of crime movies and realized that academia was not for me. And so with my parents' blessing, I dropped out of university and moved to Calgary in 2000. And I joke and say I hadn't sold a shoe, let alone a house. It was like so spur of the moment, very, I was scared. I was very, very scared. And then I just threw myself into it. And I think the beautiful part about being young is naivety. And so if people said, Tanya, you have to do this, I'd say, okay, how high do I have to jump and when do I have to be there? And so I started into this world of cold calling, door knocking, traditional marketing. I used the phone book back when we had the white pages, and I started at A, and I don't know if I got to K, I couldn't tell you, but I did that for 5 years. And it was really horrible. I'm not going to lie, but I was young. I was 20, and I was like, okay, if this is what I have to do to make, 100,000 a year at the time, then this is what I have to do. So I got sworn at, hung up on, rejected time over time. And I joined up with Mike Ferry. If any of you have ever heard of him, he's real estate coaching. And he said, with every rejection, you're getting closer to an acceptance. And so that was my motto for about 7 to 8 years of prospecting. Next. I love this these two little guys. It says here, you can borrow my belief in you until you can find yours again. I lost belief so many times with myself and just had really people pick me back up, because we all know sales is not for the faint of heart. Any of you that, whether you've sold one house or 100 houses in a year, it is just very challenging. So we have over 7,000 realtors at the Calgary Real Estate Board. The average realtor closes 10 deals a year, and 87% of Calgary realtors face failure, with many leaving the industry within 6 months to 2 years. So those just aren't great stats, ladies and gentlemen. And so if you've made it past that, you can give yourself a big clap. And if you're not in Calgary and you're in other parts of the world, those stats probably aren't too far off. Next slide. I'm going to speak to the power of connection. And I think we all assume that in real estate, we need these huge marketing budgets. We have to understand every new platform that comes, whether it's how to utilize TikTok or YouTube or, heaven forbid, Snapchat. I can't keep track of them anymore. But I think that we have to always go back to the root of sales, and that is connecting with people. And I think age gives you wisdom. And so many years later, after not, wanting to ever admit defeat or failure, I've come to a place, I'm 44 years old, where admitting that you might be wrong or taking ownership for something is very freeing. And we don't have all the answers, and we make mistakes. And so how do we connect with people? What is connection? And how do we manage that with clients and in our relationships in our marriage? It comes from being open and honest and being willing to listen. And maybe next slide. And so about 7, 8 years ago, which was way into my real estate business, I remember going out. It was about a 2-week period, and I don't know what you guys call your batting average, but if you go on those buyers brokerage meetings or those listing appointments, 7, 8 years ago, I was like a solid 90% batting average. So if I went on 10 listing presentations, I would get 9. And that is kind of really when I sensed that I really transitioned from a buyer's agent after all those years to more of a listing agent. So that would have been 16 years in the industry. I was maybe a late bloomer. And I remember going out in my kind of area, inner city Southwest, to 4 or 5 different communities. And I lost 8 out of 11 listing presentations in a 2-week period. And I just felt utterly defeated. I felt like I wasn't good enough, like I had self-doubt. What am I doing wrong? This isn't, and I was like really reflecting on, how did I show up? Like, why am I losing? And so I thought, okay, well, how do we fix this? And so I did some research and I hired a sales coach. And after 17 years, 16, 17 years, and his name is Tim Braithwaite. And oddly enough, he just reached out to me on an email yesterday. I haven't seen Tim in years, and said, I'm running a seminar if you know of anybody who wants to join, so we can talk about that later. So Tim came to my office and I shared with him ahead of time what I was being challenged with. So he said, please have a listing presentation prepared for me. So he sat at my boardroom and he said, I'd like you to give me your listing presentation like I am a seller. I said, sure, no problem. I've done it hundreds of times. So he sat across from me. I totally played the part. He was my client. And about, I'm going to say 4 minutes in, he says, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, okay. And I looked at him and I started laughing. And he said, Tanya, I sat down. You didn't ask me any questions. You just went right on into what you can do, why, like you went into sales. There was no meet and greet. There was no warm and fuzzy. He said, you've lost from the beginning. And I said, but I know the two women that I lose out to. I mean, these women are seasoned women, and they're not the warm, fuzzy either. They're like, get in, get business done. And he said, well, what you're doing isn't working for you. And then he had this little Pez machine that just spits out the Pez. And he said, you're like a Pez machine. You're talking. So it completely transitioned the way that I do my listing presentations. And so when I get into them, I'm asking questions. And I think it's one of the most important things you can do when you meet people. Yes, you're asking your buyers questions because you're engaging them and putting them on a search and asking them their criteria. But how many times are you really getting to know the sellers in a short period of time? We have an hour in our listing presentations. So one of the questions that I ask them now is, what is important to you when choosing your realtor? Because I have 15 things that I can go through in the next hour. But if you're not asking them what's important, you're not really speaking to them. So an example is, in my market, a lot of people say, Tanya, we don't care what you do to market. We know you market. We see you everywhere. We want to know what our price is, average days on market. What can we expect for showings? What do you think sales to list price ratio is? So I just saved myself 15 minutes of going through my marketing, and I've really listened to them and what they're looking for. So what's important to you when choosing your agent? And is there any specific data you'd like to go through today? I always like the tour when I walk in the home. So I put my purse, my listing presentation, my jacket at the kitchen table. I like to meet at the kitchen table, not at a couch when they're far apart from you and you're trying to fumble through the data and lift up the everything to show them. Meet them at the kitchen table. That's where they break bread with their family. But I love the tour around the house. And oftentimes they'll say, well, do you want to do it yourself? And I'll say, no, please, you know your home. While I'm walking through the house, I'm looking at the walls. I'm looking at their family photos. I'm looking at the hobbies that their family might have. They might do baseball or tennis, or they might have traveled to Greece and you just went to Greece. And so finding that commonality from walking around their home, you might know their uncle and be like, oh my gosh, that's my uncle's best friend. I grew up with him. Finding that common ground is so important, because that might be the difference in you getting that listing. That is connection, that familiarity. And then when you're at the kitchen table, I believe that storytelling is an art. And I'm still not an artist necessarily at storytelling, but I'm getting better. And so the art of storytelling is really important. So first of all is making them feel heard as the potential client. Sometimes people will say, I went to one a couple weeks ago and I asked them what's important in choosing their realtor. And they said, we've had 5 realtors in, which I thought was overkill. And you're the first person to ask us that question. That's so interesting. And so they shared with me kind of what they felt was important. And oftentimes it's the typical someone that's honest, someone that's knowledgeable, someone, this is a delicate situation, someone that has, that ability to be delicate with us. And so finding out what is important to them. And you might save time in a listing presentation because they don't want 50% of what you're going to offer. You've started out asking them questions so they feel heard. and you're really forming that connection. And you might see something on their walls or something in their house that allows you to formulate that connection. I'm a country girl. And so whenever I see anything related to the country in the house, I'm like, oh, did you grow up in the country? And let me tell you, that is like an instant connection. So those are just a few things that can help you really kind of develop rapport in a short period of time. And I love this quote: "We are often afraid of vulnerability, but vulnerability creates connection," by Gabby Bernstein. And I had heard something once that women make the best salespeople because of our ability to be vulnerable and connect. And for all the men listening, I am married to a very self-connected, grounded, vulnerable man. And that has been such a blessing in my marriage. And so I know there's men out there like that, guys. So if you can pull that vulnerability out of the depths of your soul to get a listing, then do it, but do it with authenticity. And if you can't be vulnerable, or that's not a part of your making, there are courses and help for vulnerability. Next slide. The practice of active listening. Oh, I love this. I've been married for almost 18 years. And if you asked my husband, one of the biggest transformations that he's seen in his wife, it's that I know how to listen. I can be in a conversation and sit for 10 minutes, 15, 20, and not say anything. And listening is an art. It is very difficult. I'm sure many of you can relate. I've been in conversations in the past, and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, where literally as they're talking, you're like formulating your words that are coming out of your mouth, because you have something to counteract what they have said. And one of the biggest, one of the most powerful superpowers is listening. Those silences between sentences. That is what will captivate your listeners and the people that you are surrounded by. And so if you can learn how to listen, it is a key to building trust. And oftentimes too, I find with listening with clients, instead of interjecting and interrupting them, they're going to continue to give you way more information by just listening and letting them tell their story than if you had asked them questions. And just when you think they're done talking to you and there's that pause, there's that silence, pulling out, that's really interesting. Is there anything else that you would like to share with me around that? And then they keep going and they keep talking and they keep telling you. And so if you can learn how to listen and talk less, and I feel like I'm talking a lot now, so sorry, but listening is just it's a beautiful tool that I have learned to use. And it's taken me probably 20 years to become a really good listener. But that has honestly, I believe, got me clients and listings, because sometimes in those awkward pauses, your clients or potential clients will reflect and say, wow, I really feel heard. I really feel like they listened. And sometimes it's not what you say, it's what you don't say. And people just want to feel heard and not talked to. And those are just some personal examples of, I used to talk over my clients, jumping straight into business, interjecting into their sentences, cutting them off. Now I sit back, listen, let them speak, and let them feel heard. Next screen. Open houses. Oh, I love these. These are when people walk into your home that don't have representation. Well, not all of them, but many of them. And I sat open houses religiously for probably up until I had my kids. So I'm going to say like 12, 13 years. I sat them, maybe not every weekend, but a lot of weekends. And they were probably one of the biggest sources of clients that I picked up. But I worked my open houses, and I have a really fun example. So I had a team meeting at the end of last year, and I'm not really a drill sergeant with my team. I have two wonderful ladies, Kobe and Shannon, and we had a meeting, and I don't get too excited often. And I just felt so compelled And I think it probably came off the wrong way, like a little stern, which I think caught them off guard because I'm usually not stern. And I said, ladies, if we're going to go to all the work of setting up signs, pulling comparables, looking at the data for the community, getting to know the sales intimately, square feet, what they look like, needed updating, busy street, setting up your signs, printing off feature sheets, going to the open house, do we really think that we can just do 2 hours and that's the best use of time? I used to sit my open houses for 3 to 4 hours. And unless you're a very high volume realtor and you just don't have the time because you're out with listing presentations and showing buyers, then that's a different story. But open houses are such a great tool, but they're only a tool if you know how to use them as a tool. So you being a doorman when people walk in and giving them the feature sheet and saying price, square feet, and take a look around the house and let me know if you have any questions, that is not really utilizing and it's not connecting with the people in your open house. So one of the agents says to me, well, Tanya, I'm open to it, but I just don't find them a useful tool. I don't pick up clients. And I said, well, why don't we sit one together? So I got back from Maui and it was, I think, January, the second week or third week in Jan. And it was a inner city listing, 1.699 million. It had been listed with another realtor previously before Christmas, didn't sell. Price was good. I couldn't tell them their price was high. Well, we sat this open house, we advertised it, we sent out some emails, and it was probably one of the busiest open houses I had ever sat. I'm going to say we probably had, 35 groups of people through. And that's busy for Calgary. Actually, I did have one that we had 60 ones, so maybe this was the second busiest. And she was able to really just sit back and watch how I engaged with people. And at the end, when everyone left, we sat at the kitchen table and I said, how do you feel about that? And she said, I get it. You connected with people. These are not people I knew, and maybe they knew my name, but I'd give them the feature sheet and I'd ask them questions like, do you live in the area? How long have you been looking? When they'd come back from the top to the main, I'd say, so what do you think about the house so far? And then when they'd finish the open house or finish walking through all the levels, they'd come up. I'd say, so do you think that this is a house for you that you could see yourself moving in? And if not, can you give me any constructive feedback? And it opened up, well, you know what? We just started looking. We live in Curry. We have a really big house and we thought that we'd want to downsize. We love this house. And these are some of the things we love about it. And they talked about their kids and they talked about their family. And I said, where do you live in Curry? They said, we live on Tommy Prince Road. And I said, oh, I just sold one last year on Tommy Prince Road, number 9, whatever it was, number 11. They said, we live at number 23. And I said, oh my gosh, are these blankety blank the neighbors to you to the left? I sold their house 5 years ago. Oh my gosh, the Reyazes, we know the Reyazes. And it developed this beautiful rapport. They took my information, I took their information, and all I had to do was show some interest and ask some questions and get to know them. That may be hard to do with all 35 people and not realistic, but even if you pick one client out of an open house in 3 to 4 hours, we sat that open house for 3 hours, and it was interesting. Had we, and I made note of this, had we left at the 2-hour mark, we would have lost out on 16, not people, groups of people walking through that door in the last hour, 16, if we had only sat 2 hours. That, I don't know about you, ladies and gentlemen, but that's some good numbers. I would prefer to have 16 more people walk through my house. And I sense this trend has shifted, because when I started, open houses for 3 to 4 hours were the norm, and now they're 2. And I just can't get my head wrapped around that, because I'm like, but why don't you want to pick up more people? So sit them for 3. I joke and said, none of this 2-hour business, like sit it for 3. Less time means less chances to connect with people. Don't just give them a feature sheet. Ask them questions, engage, get to know them, ask them about their kids, ask them if they live in the area, ask them if they've considered this area or they just came off the signs. Get to know the people. Next slide.
I got a quick question for you, Tanya, on the open houses also.
Yes.
what's your perspective? Because obviously there's been a shift with social media and a lot of new agents getting into the industry. And I think that a lot of people are looking for quick wins and to do everything on social media, which is a great way to generate business. And there's a lot of people that are crushing it on these platforms. I still like some of the old school stuff, also like open houses, because if I get a very high quality person right there, I have the ability to connect and I can get a client right away. But I guess what's your perspective for the new agent thinking that social media is the only way versus like there could be a world where you can have a combination of both of these things to build your business quickly? What would be your stance on that?
Oh, Riley, I'm so happy that you asked me this. And I, I like, okay, things were different 24 years ago. I mean, I think I was one of the first people in my office to have a website. We had just started texting. We still had a listings book. This is crazy. It was a book that was about this big and would come out once a month through the Calgary Real Estate Board of all the new listings. Every month. That's how you found out before the MLS system. We had no lock boxes. Lock boxes were just being introduced. So you had to meet the realtor at the property or hide a key somewhere. Like it was so archaic. Like I think of evolution in 24 years. So I did what I had to do at that time, but I am a firm believer that print ad is not dead and open houses are not dead. And I think for the newer generation coming up, that's just how they grew up. They grew up on YouTube and TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram and Facebook. And so that is what they know. And it's probably very daunting to them to cold call, to door knock, where, yes, that was still daunting to me, but it was what we had at that time. I think there's a huge relevance and a huge importance of integrating both of those because social media doesn't get you that face-to-face connection. And I'm going to share with you something that isn't in my presentation, but so important. If there is one piece of advice that I could give our listeners, our 26 participants today, it is this. If you don't connect with people face to face, we as realtors are a dying breed. We will be replaced by AI before you notice. And I just read on Instagram that somewhere in Europe, an AI robot has now secured 100 million in real estate deals, an actual robot. And so if we don't connect on this level that we're connecting today, open houses, picking up the phone and calling people, we will be obsolete in 10 to 15 years. And I'll give you another example, which is really concerning to me in our industry. And it is not to peg the millennials or a younger demographic, but that is just how they grew up. I have an 8 and 11-year-old, and I can't believe my 11-year-old, what she knows on Instagram. And I had some clients yesterday interview me as a buyer's agent, and I don't do as much buying anymore, but I still do. And they said, Tanya, what do you prefer for a mode of communication? And I said, great question. I said, I think that it depends on the situation. I said, what I do find alarming is I would say that 75% of realtors out there, not me including, are texting their clients counter offer to me in a text message over the phone. And if you're doing this, please don't do that. You are not giving your clients a service because there is so much that you cannot get across in a text message. And I have been able to get my clients much better pricing on the list and buy because I picked up the phone. I dangled a carrot on the phone to say, look, I'm so appreciative of your offer. It is quite a bit lower than we had anticipated for these reasons, A, B, and C. Low supply on the market. So I can appreciate that the last sale in November, which was one of the slowest months of the year last year, sold for 1.425. This home, there's no other townhouse product in the inner city between 1 and 1.3 million. We're the only show in town. And B and C, whatever that is. But that cannot be sent in a text message. You are negotiating probably their most important asset. And I think as an industry, we need to do better because if not, any AI robot can do that. What they can't do is true connection and true emotion. So pick up the phone. Texting is for like, hey, I'm so sorry, I'm stuck in traffic, I'm running 10 minutes late. And if you're driving, you shouldn't be texting that either. You should be using Siri. But that is for, honey, I forgot the bread, I'm running to the farmer's market. You know, those are the things that we text, not someone's asset that we are trying to get them a better price. And I oftentimes, what would your client think if they knew you were texting their counter offer to the other realtor? I think that it would be very embarrassing if they found out. And also remember, nothing leaves the internet. If anything ever happens with that deal, and you are called on to provide any digital information, your texts and emails will all have to be provided. And so I always say, you know, I had a girlfriend one time that wasn't having a sexual affair, but was having an emotional affair with somebody. And I said, what would your husband say if he saw those text messages? Would he be okay with that? And she says, you're right. The same thing would apply to your client. How would your client feel if they saw that text message? And so technology is beautiful. I think I say to people, I could never do the volume that I do without DocuSign. It is not humanly possible that I would have to show up at 230 homes in a year and sign paperwork. It's not possible. So the whole social digital world is a beautiful tool. I still do print ad in magazines. I still do just listed cards. When I list a home, it goes out to the whole community. People who live in the community are advocates of the community. So it's marketing the listing, but it's also marketing me. I'm doing my target farming marketing. And so I believe in digital and print ad. I believe in picking up the phone, and I believe in the digital side of pushing your listings through whatever you do, whether it's YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. So such a great question, Riley.
Nice. Yeah, I think it's so important to have a combination of both. And if you don't, you're definitely leaving some stones unturned. And she's also preaching it because her shit is everywhere in these areas, like bus benches, signage, everything. So thank you. Go ahead and you can run.
Great question. Thank you. So listing presentations, oh my gosh, listing is such an art. And I still, you know, I still leave every listing presentation, guys, and I'm like, did I get the price right? Did I say the right things? It doesn't change. You could be in this for 50 years. You're always going to walk out. I did one last week, the morning before I left to Phoenix, on a $5 million home, and they were interviewing 2 realtors. And I walked out and I'm like, oh, dang, why did I say that? I shouldn't have said that. I didn't, why? Why did I ask that question? I didn't need to ask that question. And I second guessed myself. Well, I got the listing. I'm listing it Monday. It's a beautiful home. So I think it's human nature. But when we're walking into listing presentations, again, here are some questions that I ask. What's the most important thing to you when choosing your realtor? What are your marketing expectations? And sometimes people will say, Tanya, we have no idea, you're the expert, but just ask the question. It's very interesting because if they're of younger demographic, they may really want that digital. So if that's the case, then you can focus more on the digital platform that you offer more than maybe the old school print ad form that you may or may not offer. But if you're meeting with an older demographic, I can guarantee you that demographic, the custom tailored ads on Facebook and Instagram that reach a target market's going to go whoosh. And so really understand who your audience is. Ask about their family, their interests, the reason behind selling. This is such a really good question. And some people are hesitant. I say that our business is really helping people come together in happiness and helping people move apart in sadness and being able to move on with their lives. And you have to remember that for some people, selling, it's not a celebration. I work with a mediator in the city who gives me very, very contentious sales. And oddly enough, I love it so much that I'm in the process of taking a course for a divorce certification because I do a lot of it. But these are very tender, tense moments. I often deal with people that have mental illness, that have depression, and you have one spouse leaving the other spouse. And you sit at their kitchen table and maybe they're together or they're not. And it's really, really hard. I cried with a woman 2-3 times through a 3-month process at her island and held her and told her that she was not broken, because she says, I'm broken. And I said, you're not broken. You're sad and you're going through something really horrible, and I'm here for you. that is connection. And I worry that with AI that we're starting and digital, we're starting to lose that. And to me, that is the key to success. Subtle observations, like what's on the walls, what can you relate to, that personal connection that I spoke to earlier, walking through that house before you sit down to discuss it, and building rapport before jumping onto the business side. Next slide. Constructive feedback. Do we really want to know why we didn't get the listing? Are our feelings going to get hurt? Probably, could be, depends on how hard you are. I actually used to, this is one of the most fearful questions I used to have, because the thought of failure, the thought of why not me, why not being chosen, and some of that was triggered to, I was bullied really bad as a child and had to switch schools. And so I had maybe held some trauma in that area that I had to really get through, which I worked on, and I'm through. And now that I'm through that, I love constructive feedback. I'm like, bring it on. So if you don't get it, ask why. You know, congratulations on making your decision. I'd be lying if I was sad that it wasn't me, but I'm happy that you've come to a conclusion, and best of luck to you. And can I ask you the reason that you chose your other agent, or is there anything that I can do to better my business practice? Sometimes it's price, sometimes it's connection. They just connected better with someone. Oh, we chose our kids' hockey coach. No problem. I get that. But sometimes there is some really good little nuggets of information. I have something funny to share with you. So I walked into a listing presentation 2 weeks ago, 3.2 million. And I really connected with them. We had fun. She was kind of just an eclectic personality, playful. So I felt really good about it. They were interviewing, I think, 4 agents, and called her back exactly when I said I was going to. And she says, Tanya, I'm just going to be honest with you. She said, this may sound crazy, but I went with such and such. And I'm thinking, I've never even heard of this woman. And she said, because she offered to clean my house before we list and a move out clean after we list. And I said, I didn't realize that that was like a pain point for you. I said, if that was really important, I said, I totally would have had that done for you. Well, and she offered to take out some of the furniture and put it in the garage that, you know, she didn't think would work. But I laughed on our call, in our conversation, and I used her first name, and we'll say her name was Jacqueline. I said, Jacqueline, I said, I would have had your home clean for you. I said, I didn't know that that was a pain point. And she said, Tanya, I know, and I feel even silly telling you that, but when you told me that I had to clear off my countertops and have my house professionally cleaned, I agreed with you, but I just didn't have the energy to do it. Okay, well, I'm so appreciative of you letting me know. And if anything doesn't work out, you know that I'm here for you. And she says, Tanya, I do. So we don't know people's pain points, and could I have done anything different? I guess maybe I could have read her a bit more when she looked really like, oh, that I have to clean off my countertops. I could have maybe, I don't know. So that feedback is just, I think next time I'm not going to offer to clean every Tom, Dick, and Harry's house, but I might try to be more, I guess, ask some more questions around that. So it is good to ask for feedback. That one made me laugh. It did go to market. It is listed. It looks like she cleaned off her countertops and her house is clean. So I hope she sells her house quick. I think being curious is important. Sometimes people will say, well, Tanya, I don't really know. You know, it's a good question. Dig into it. Say, was it price? Was it marketing? Was it a particular type of market knowledge? I dig in. I don't just let them say, oh, okay, that's no problem. Because sometimes that's where the real meat is when you dig in a little bit more. Sometimes it's something you can change, and sometimes it's not. And remember, you can't connect with everyone. So don't try to. I walked into one a couple months ago, and I walked in the door. It was obviously a divorce. She had her coat on at the kitchen table. She took my listing presentation and just started thumbing through it, looking at it, didn't acknowledge me, didn't do anything. The husband is sitting there looking really awkward. I did my best, but she was stone cold. She was giving me nothing. And I think, the Tanya many years ago would have been like, I'm going to make her love me and I'm going to get this. I just didn't feel compelled, because I think as your business evolves, you have so many really great clients that you want to work with. And I really only want to work with people that want to work with me. And so if you think that somebody may be a liability, or you think it may be a personality clash, it is okay to say no. And I was in and out of that listing presentation in 35 minutes. I did still follow up, and they got back to me saying that, we haven't made our decision yet. And they ended up going with a colleague of mine, one of my dear friends, who basically said I was going to make this woman love me if it was the last thing I did before I walk out that front door. And she did. And I said, girl, kudos to you. And it really was. She really did. They sold their $1.1 million home in like 2 weeks. And so, but it's okay to not connect with people. It's okay to not want a listing. And it is definitely good to see a liability coming. If you think someone is going to be disrespectful to you, be high maintenance, it's okay to let that go and know that you didn't connect. And I think people can sniff out whether you're genuine or not. Next slide.
Just something small too. I think there's a good lesson in there that not all clients are your people and you don't have to work with everybody. And I've had that a few times where, I'd like to think that I have the ability to connect with almost anybody, especially in a listing appointment or with a buyer. And sometimes if you're facing resistance, I lean into it more and I want to make that client work with me and like me. And a lot of times it has gone well and I have gotten the business, but the file has been an absolute nightmare to deal with. So there's good lessons in there to, not everybody is your people and you shouldn't work with everybody, because all of the ones that I've pushed to then secure the listing or the buyer, it's always been like 2 to 3 times the workload on that file every single time. It's never been an easy one because I went against the grain. So you got to trust your gut, which is a good lesson in there.
Yeah, so true, Riley. And sometimes as a new realtor, I think that that's hard, because I don't know who on the call is brand new or even in the first 3 years. Like, we need clients. Like, I can't sit here and say that that was my mantra in the first 5 years, because I had mortgage, I had bills, I had aspirations of travel and the things I wanted to do. So I think I did take every client and I did what I thought was right for me at the time. But looking back, even in 10, 15 years later into my career, there were definitely clients that at the beginning, even my staff would say, Janet, she's so wise, she's been a real estate admin for I think over 30 years, I'm so lucky to have her. And she'd be like, Tanya, I think she's going to be a liability. And I'd be like, oh, Janet, I got this. Like, and sure enough, Janet was right. So I think it is important to kind of listen to your gut and your senses. I'm just going to close with this quote from Mel Robbins, and I love it because it is so real. No one knows what they're doing. Nobody. Not even the ones with degrees and big job titles and more things than you. Not even the people on your vision board. Everyone is just trying loudly, failing loudly, and trying again, and so should you.
Mic drop. Amazing. What a great quote to end on. Thank you so much. I'm going to spotlight Tanya. We've got about 10 minutes left for questions. I'm sure Tanya would be willing to answer any questions. I haven't looked at the chat at all, so we can jump in here too. But if anyone has anything, put your hand up, drop it in the chat.
Riley, Audrey had a question. What do you think is the best time window, morning versus afternoon? And this is when you were speaking on open houses, Tanya. So I'm assuming, Audrey, that's me.
Yeah, you know what? I think that you can try both. I have my team members do both. Sometimes they'll do from like 11 to 2 or 1 to 4. I think both have been lucrative. I think it's more maybe less about the time of day and more about the, is it the best time? Like, what is going on in your city at the time that you're doing them? Is it a long weekend? Some of those. But that being said, sometimes you'll do a long weekend and it's dead. And then the next long weekend you'll do and it's really busy. So, I don't have an affinity. I did have a realtor one time want to sit a vacant house Friday from like 6 to 8, and he had like one person through. So I think maybe the evenings aren't the best. Like people are with their families, or they're out at dinner, or they're out at their kids' sports. But I think any kind of time window in that 11 to 4 is probably pretty good.
Oh, I'm gonna butcher it again. Is it Josue? Is that right?
Yeah, you got it, Riley. Thanks, man.
Nice.
Thank you. Tanya, I had a question. You mentioned in the beginning that you have 5 full-time employees that help you do what you do and be able to do as many deals as you do. Who do you have as your employees, and what do they do to help you free up your time to get as many deals as you do?
Yes. More than happy to share that. So Janet is my listing coordinator. Janet's been a real estate admin in the city for over 30 years. She's been with me for almost 8. So she books photos, measuring, virtual tours, sends the client the listing paperwork. I give her the information for the paperwork. If we don't know it, she'll email the client. She does FinTrack, which is our government identification form for money laundering and terrorism. So everything, document, photos, measuring, virtual tour, drone, everything she books with the client. As soon as the home goes conditionally sold, Courtney is my conveyancing coordinator. So she handles everything from booking inspection, access for service providers, access for the buyers, conveying everything to the lawyer, handling keys on possession, making sure everything is left at the house, getting all receipts if there was anything that needed to be done by the seller. And she'll do things like, if someone says, well, can you call the city and find out, what if there's any development permits kind of going on within a 5-house radius from this house. So she kind of does some R&D as well. Olga is my EAPA, so like an executive personal assistant. She does everything from like dry cleaning to client gifts to reviews, and then handing out gifts for when we get a review. She does lock boxes, feature sheets, accompanies photographers. She does everything outside of the office, sits home inspections. I get permission or write it into the contract in Calgary that she is allowed to sit an inspection. The seller then agrees to it because we do a lot of volume. I don't have a licensed agent that can go sit 3 hours at a home inspection. So as long as I get permission, I'll get a 1-day code and she'll sit that for me. So she does all my home inspections. Cass is our in-house photographer, videographer. So she does our, we have a Matterport. So she does our virtual tours, all of our photography. And then the only thing we source out is measuring and drone photos, because you have to be licensed to measure, and she doesn't do a drone. And then any videos we also source out. And then Nikki handles all of my digital marketing, social media, print ad, anything digital marketing and social media. And she also does my podcast. I have a podcast called The Vow Voice of Women. It is not real estate related. And so she does that as well.
Awesome.
That was super insightful. Nice. Thank you. There's a couple more questions in here. I don't know if that's Naveed or one of his counterparts, because there's like 7 Naveeds here.
It's his bot.
Oh, it's his bot. Okay.
That's just one of my bots. I am labeled as the real Naveed Kajani.
There we go. That's the important one. I think Tanya, you probably unpacked it a little bit, but can you talk more about your 5-person staff and what it allows you to focus on? How did that evolve? So we've kind of answered that, but I guess where does that leave you in your equation? Like, what's your primary focus? You're probably meeting clients, negotiating offers, signing listings. Like, that's probably your bread and butter is my guess, but.
It is. And I have like the 5 F pillars. So it's my faith, family, fitness, finances. And what did I miss? Faith, family, fitness, finances. Oh my God, what's the 5th F? I'm going to think about it 1 second.
Philanthropy with an F, not a P.
No. Oh my gosh, how embarrassing. Anyways, 5 pillars, 5 Fs. We'll talk about the 4 today. Yeah. And did I say family? Family, yes. Fitness, yeah. Faith, finances. Oh my gosh. Okay, anyways,
It'll,
we'll come back.
it'll come.
Fun,
Fun. Yeah.
yeah. No. But I'm really big into having, I think people call it balance, I call it wellness. And so those 5 people really allow me to do the things in my life that bring me joy. I'm really about an abundance of joy. And that is just so important to me. I travel a lot with my family. Last year, we were gone for 3.5 months out of the year, to different places. We have a home in Phoenix. We're here right now. I'm here for the month. And so that platform and that assistance really allows me to have the balance. And I joke and say I'm not the best businesswoman because I don't have the agents on my team to make me money. I know in a lot of the new platforms that are more like that trickle down, that funnel that you have, the more agents you get, the more it funnels down and you make more money. I love what I do. I love connection. I love selling homes. I love listing presentations. I love taking out buyers. So for me, that just isn't enticing to me because I really love the art of the deal and the negotiation and that client interaction. I have agents on my team that, yes, I make a split, but I don't have 20 agents or 15. I have 2 agents. They get all the leads that I can't facilitate. They get all the sign calls, internet calls. I don't do lead generation. I do Google ads and that type of thing, but I don't, and I do a bit of SEO, but I'm not like a big SEO pumping out 300 leads a month for my agents. That's just not my business. One's not right or wrong or better or worse. It's just not my business. And so I think that those 5 admin, that 5 support staff really help me to not just work a lot, but really give me balance. I take Sundays off as a rule. I still have my phone available. I'm still negotiating deals, but I try not to take clients on Sundays, and I work a half day Saturday. So I work from 9 to 3. And there are exceptions to that. I would never say to a buyer, oh, I'm sorry, I can't show you this house if I'm not available. But I do really try to have some boundaries now around kind of my time. I have 2 young daughters and a husband, and I have things that I want to do that bring me joy. One thing I will touch on is adding people to your team from an administrative standpoint is an evolution because you can't just add 5 people at, whether you're $60,000 to $80,000 a year salaries. And so when I first started adding people, my first admin, this is many years ago. So again, social media wasn't like you didn't need a whole new person for that, but they would do everything. They did the admin, and we had outsourced our photography then. And so I think with the volume that I do, it just felt better. I had one of my admin come to me and she said, Tanya, you could hire your own photographer. We paid our photographer for photos, measuring, and virtual tour like $140,000 one year, like 5 years ago. She's like, you should hire your own photographer. And so it was really an evolution. I think it's been probably about 7 years now that I've had 5 core people, 6 or 7 years. And I just kind of kept adding them. But at the beginning, it was finding one person that could do them all. And then you'd get too busy and you had to splice them off. And then they'd be too busy, so you had to hire someone else. So that part of it is an evolution.
I think that's pretty incredible. A lot of people want to strive towards that. Like 3 months off out of the year, Sundays off, 230 personal transactions, good balance overall in life with family and faith and fitness and business and all this stuff. So that's amazing. Super proud of you. You've crushed it.
Thanks, Riley.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions for Tanya before we sign off for today? Raquel, anything you want to unpack or any announcements or anything?
You are amazing, Tanya. I just love your clarity and how clear you are about your business model, because I find that most agents, as they go to different events, are always chasing the next thing. And you're just very clear on what you're building, how you're building, and what you absolutely love. So thank you for your presentation today. I truly believe that connection is everything in business and in life. And you said that so well today.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. I'm honored.
Yeah. And everyone that is on the call, this is our last Edge call because we are merging with United. So that call is on Mondays. We will send out details And that group right now sits at about 100 to 200 people on the call. So we're excited. Riley and I are excited to pull the edge. Amy and Joe have been asking us for a while when we could actually come and join forces together, and we're super excited. And there's another Naveed.
We got one more quick question before we sign off.
Yeah.
Well, I'm Nameed, aka Teresina. Nice to meet you. What you said and what you share is so powerful, and I am like really impressed that you have really figured out what really matters to you and created a whole, system to help basically support the type of life and desire, to live. And, I really would like to model this system. And I'm just wondering, do you have anyone who teaches this, or, what resources can I tap into, just because I am less than 3 years, in the business, and I'm finding, yes, I'm already thinking in terms, I need a person to do this, a person to do that, in order to just manage all the things. I mean, I got things, I'm like, a caregiver, I take care of my family and things like that. And I'm just like, okay, I can do this, but I can't be in multiple places everywhere. Anyway, I just wanted to know if you had anything to yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Naveed. And you know what? I don't have anything right now. I think, ask me 10 years from now when my daughters are in university, mentoring and coaching is like something that I'm super passionate about, but I don't have any resources. But listen, if you reach out to Riley or Raquel, they can provide you my information. I'm more than happy to hop on a call with you. And the one piece of advice I would give is, and it's dependent where people are in their lives, but if you're able to delegate, so try to find out what you're worth an hour. And so whatever your hourly rate is, then if it's hovering just around your hourly rate, then maybe you keep it. But if your hourly rate is $82 an hour based on what you made last year, and you could source something out for $25 an hour, then that's kind of what you have to try to adjust to. And sometimes that can be hard, but that's my motto. I know what I'm worth an hour. And so the things that are not worth that to me, I delegate out. Now, obviously that's gotten higher and higher over the years, but even in year 5 or 6, someone shared that with me, and that was really powerful. And so hiring your first assistant is extremely daunting. I remember I had to pay her $42,000 a year, but she also got licensed. So she was doing licensed things for me as well. But that would kind of be the motto, but reach out to Riley. I'm more than happy to have a conversation with you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Tanya.
You're welcome, Naveed.
Thank you. I love that, freaking Naveed. Thank you so much for your time today, Tanya. Really appreciate you as always. And thank you everybody for tuning in today.
And it was fun. It was fun.
Nah, there it is. That's the
Fun
the
and
fifth
freedom is what a couple of people said. Abby said, fun and freedom.
Yeah, freedom's a big one.
You can't forget the fun, right? Let's go.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody. See you, T.
All right. Bye, everyone.